The heat was relentless that January afternoon in New Orleans. The asphalt seemed to melt beneath the cars that formed a metallic corridor reflecting the scorching sun. Street vendors shouted their offers while the smell of jambalaya and other Louisiana delicacies filled the air. On Canal Street, the movement was intense, typical of a city that never stops, even at the height of summer. In the midst of this chaotic and feverish scene, a small silhouette stood out for its stillness. Lily, a girl of approximately 7 years old, observed the comings and goings of people with attentive and curious eyes. Her curly hair was stuck to her forehead with sweat, her t-shirt much larger than her thin body, and her torn shorts revealed knees scratched from constant contact with the hot ground. She seemed invisible to the hurried eyes that passed around her. The girl positioned herself strategically in front of Sunlight Flavors, the busiest restaurant in the area. It was an elegant establishment, part of a luxury culinary network with locations in several American cities. Through the large glass windows, Lily could see well-dressed customers savoring colorful and elaborate dishes, protected from the infernal heat by air conditioning that escaped each time the door opened. She didn't extend her hand, didn't ask for anything. She just observed with an intensity that belied her age. Her eyes followed the ballet of waiters between tables, the plates that came steaming from the kitchen, the satisfied smiles of customers. It was as if she was studying a world completely different from her own, separated only by a glass pane and a social abyss. Inside the restaurant, at a discreet table in the back, Andrew Lewis Morgan reviewed financial reports with the concentration of someone who had built an empire. At 47, the CEO of the Sunlight Flavors chain carried on his face the marks of a life of hard work. He wore an impeccable navy blue suit, despite the Louisiana heat, like someone who never allows himself to relax. He was in New Orleans to personally supervise a structural renovation in the establishment and review its performance. "Your coffee, sir," said Nick, the restaurant's most veteran waiter, placing a steaming cup on the table. "Thank you," replied Andrew without raising his eyes from the papers. His fingers drummed on the table as he analyzed the numbers. Something wasn't right in the expense reports. It was Claire, a novice waitress, who first noticed Lily's presence. She approached Andrew's table with hesitant steps. "Excuse me, sir. There's a child standing outside for over an hour, just looking in. I think she's hungry." Andrew raised his eyes for the first time, a crease of irritation forming between his eyebrows. "And what do you want me to do about it?" The question came out drier than he intended. "Nothing, sir. I just thought I should inform you." Andrew sighed, standing up. "Show me." Claire led him to the main window. That's when he saw Lily for the first time. Something about that image, the small girl alone observing a world that didn't welcome her, caused a crack in the armor he had built over the years. As he watched, something unexpected happened. Lily, as if driven by sudden courage, pushed open the restaurant door and entered. The air conditioning hit her like a wave, making her blink several times. Some customers stopped their conversations, looking at the small intruder with expressions ranging from discomfort to pity. Lily walked with determined steps to the main counter, ignoring the stares. Her voice, surprisingly firm for such a small child, broke the awkward silence that had formed. "Can I eat the leftovers? I'll wash the dishes." The phrase, spoken with disconcerting dignity, silenced the environment. A lady at a nearby table brought her hand to her mouth, shocked. Two executives exchanged uncomfortable glances. Nick, the experienced waiter, was already stepping forward to remove her politely when Andrew raised his hand, stopping him. He approached the girl, bending down to be at her eye level. Up close, he could better see the freckles scattered across her nose, eyes of a deep brown that seemed much older than her body, and the subtle tremor in her dried lips. "What's your name?" he asked with a gentleness that surprised even himself. "Lily." The answer came without hesitation, without fear. "Are you hungry, Lily?" She nodded, keeping her gaze steady. "But I can work. I know how to wash dishes. My mum taught me." Andrew felt something stir inside him, an old, almost forgotten memory, a skinny boy watching bakeries, dreaming of the smell of fresh bread. Himself decades ago in the outskirts of Chicago. "You don't need to wash any dishes," he said, standing up and signaling to Claire. "Bring a full plate of today's special orange juice and a dessert." "Andrew," interrupted Mrs. Teresa, the establishment's manager for 15 years, approaching discreetly. We can't establish this precedent. Soon we'll have dozens of children here. Andrew faced her with calculated coldness. This is my restaurant, Teresa, and this is a hungry child. We're not discussing policies right now. Lily was led to a table in the corner, away from the more critical gazes. Her plate arrived steaming: grilled fish fillet with passion fruit sauce, rice with fresh herbs and sautéed vegetables. Her eyes widened at the impeccable presentation, as if she were before a work of art. She ate slowly, savoring each bite with a reverence that made Andrew sit across from her, mesmerized. They didn't talk. It wasn't necessary. There was something in that shared silence that communicated more than words could express. When she finished, Lily wiped her mouth with a cloth napkin, imitating the gestures she had observed at the other tables. She looked at Andrew and simply said, "Thank you." Then, like someone who had completed a mission, she stood up and walked toward the exit. Andrew followed her with his gaze, a strange feeling of loss invading him. He wanted to call her back, ask where she lived, if she had family, if she would be okay. But something stopped him. The pride in those small shoulders, the dignity with which she had entered and was now leaving, as if she had every right to be there. "Will she come back?" he asked Claire, who was collecting the plates. "I don't know, sir. I hope so." Andrew returned to his table but couldn't concentrate on the reports anymore. The image of Lily remained vivid in his mind, awakening questions and concerns he had buried long ago. Who was taking care of that child? Why was she alone? Where did she sleep? At the end of the day, when the restaurant was already closed and the cleaning staff was finishing their work, Andrew remained seated at his table, reflecting. Teresa approached, placing a cup of tea in front of him. "I've never seen you like this because of a customer," she commented, sitting in the chair across from him. "She wasn't a customer," replied Andrew, turning the cup between his fingers. "What was she then?" Andrew looked out the window to the now quieter street, where hours before Lily had disappeared. "A reminder," he said finally, "of something I had forgotten." The next morning, Andrew arrived earlier at the restaurant. He placed on the corner table where Lily had sat a small package with a sandwich, a juice box, and a napkin with a simple drawing, himself in front of the restaurant, waiting. He didn't know if she would return, but felt he needed to be prepared. Something had changed in him since that encounter, as if a long-closed door had been suddenly thrown open. And so, while Sunlight Flavors prepared for another day of operation, Andrew Lewis Morgan, the relentless CEO known for his coldness in business, waited for a small girl who had managed what many executives and partners never could, completely capture his attention. If you found this story interesting, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give it a like. Tell us which city you're watching from. We'll continue. 3 days passed without Lily appearing. Andrew maintained his routine of leaving a small snack at the corner table every morning, but at the end of the day, it was he himself who collected the untouched package. His presence in New Orleans, initially scheduled to last only a week, was already extending with no planned return to Chicago. He told his partners that the restaurant renovation required his personal supervision, but the truth was that he couldn't leave the city without seeing the girl again. On the afternoon of the 4th day, when the New Orleans sky was beginning to turn orange and pink, the restaurant door opened and Lily entered. She was cleaner than the first time, her hair tied in an improvised ponytail, but her clothes were still the same. She carried something in her hands, a colored paper folded several times. Andrew was in a meeting with suppliers when Claire discreetly interrupted him. "Sir, the girl has returned." He immediately stood up, excusing himself to those present. He found Lily standing in the middle of the dining room, looking smaller and more fragile under the elegant lights of the restaurant. When she saw him, her eyes lit up with a recognition that made Andrew's heart tighten. "Hi," she said simply. "Hi, Lily. I was waiting for you." She extended the folded paper. "I made this for you." Andrew carefully unfolded the drawing. It was a colorful and childlike representation of himself, Lily, and the restaurant. In the corner of the paper, she had written in crooked letters, "Thank you for lunch." "It's beautiful," he said, genuinely touched. "You have talent." Lily smiled, a smile that completely transformed her face, revealing a child that existed behind the serious facade that the world had forced her to build. "Are you hungry?" asked Andrew. She nodded, but then added, "But today it's not just for me. My mom needs to eat too." It was the first time she mentioned her family. Andrew felt a wave of relief knowing she wasn't completely alone in the world, as he had feared. "Is your mom here?" Lily shook her head. "She's looking for work. I told her I knew a place where they gave good food." Andrew felt the weight of that trust. For Lily, he was just the man from the restaurant who gave good food. She didn't know she was standing before the owner of a national chain of luxury gastronomy. "We can prepare something for you to take to her," he offered. "And you can stay to eat here too." Lily's face lit up. "Can I draw while I wait?" Andrew nodded, leading her to the corner table, which had silently already become Lily's table. He provided paper and colored pencils he borrowed from the administrative office and watched with fascination as she concentrated on her new drawing. Meanwhile, he ordered a complete meal to go. When the package was ready, he sat with Lily to watch her eat. "Where do you live, Lily?" he finally asked. She chewed slowly before answering. "Now we're staying at Mrs. Zelda's house, my mom's friend. Before it was in Oakwood, but we had to leave." Andrew knew Oakwood, a neighborhood on the outskirts of New Orleans, known for its strong African-American cultural presence, but also for the socio-economic difficulties faced by its residents. "And your mom, what's her name?" "Patricia. She used to work cleaning houses, but now she doesn't have work anymore. That's why we're at Mrs. Zelda's house until she can get money again." The simplicity with which Lily explained her precarious situation contrasted with the complexity of feelings it awakened in Andrew. He, who dealt daily with millionaire figures and decisions that affected hundreds of employees, felt strangely powerless in the face of this child's concrete problems. "Can you bring your mum here tomorrow?" he asked, an idea beginning to form in his mind. Lily seemed to hesitate. "She gets embarrassed, says she doesn't like to ask for things." "Tell her it's not for asking, it's to talk about work." The girl's eyes widened. "Real work? With benefits and everything?" Andrew smiled at her enthusiasm. "Yes, real work." When Lily left the restaurant that night, carefully carrying the package with food for her mother, Andrew felt he had made an important decision, although he didn't yet know exactly what it was. The next morning, he arrived at the restaurant earlier than usual. He had spent much of the night thinking about how to help Lily and her mother in a way that wouldn't hurt their pride. He was organizing some documents when Teresa entered his office with a concerned expression. "Andrew, there's a woman asking for you. Says her daughter told her to come here." He immediately stood up. "Must be Lily's mother. Ask her to come in, please." Patricia entered hesitantly, like someone who isn't used to being invited into spaces like that. She was a young woman, couldn't be more than 30 years old, but her tired eyes and calloused hands told a story of hard work and constant worries. She wore simple clothes, but clean and well kept, the same fine features as Lily, the same silent dignity. "Good morning," she said, her voice low but firm. "My daughter said you wanted to talk to me about work." Andrew indicated the chair in front of his desk. "Yes, please, have a seat. I'm Andrew Lewis Morgan, owner of this restaurant chain." Patricia's eyes widened in recognition. "You're the owner? Lily didn't tell me that. She just said that a man from the restaurant gave her food and then asked if I wanted to work." Andrew smiled. For Lily, that's what matters, and she's right. They talked for almost an hour. Patricia told her story. Born and raised in New Orleans, she had become pregnant young and was abandoned by Lily's father even before the birth of their daughter. She had worked as a domestic cleaner in family homes, managing to maintain a small rented apartment in Oakwood. But 2 months ago, she had lost her job when the family she worked for moved abroad. Without references and with a difficult job market, she hadn't been able to find another steady job. The savings ran out, the rent fell behind, and they were evicted. Now they were living as guests in the home of an old friend, doing small odd jobs to contribute to expenses. "Lily is a special child," said Patricia, her eyes shining with pride despite the difficulties. "At school, the teachers always say she has a natural talent for drawing. Even with everything we've been through, she never lost hope." Andrew listened attentively, impressed by the strength of this woman who, despite all adversities, maintained her dignity and focus on her daughter's well-being. "I have a proposal for you," he said finally. "We need someone to supervise the cleaning team here at the restaurant. It's a position of trust, with full benefits and all the perks." Patricia's face lit up, but soon after, doubt appeared in her eyes. Why me? You don't even know me. You don't know if I'm qualified. Andrew appreciated her honesty. I saw how your daughter behaves. I saw the education and dignity with which she presented herself here. Children like that are raised by exceptional parents. And Lily? I don't have anyone to leave her with after school. She can come here, replied Andrew without hesitation. We have a room in the back where she can do her schoolwork. Draw. If it doesn't interfere with her studies, of course. Patricia seemed speechless, fighting against the tears that threatened to fall. Why are you doing this? The question caught Andrew by surprise. Why, indeed, was he getting so involved? What was it about that girl and her mother that touched him so deeply? Because someone once did the same for me, he finally answered, surprising himself with the sincerity. When I was a little older than Lily, living on the outskirts of Chicago, a man gave me an opportunity that changed my life. I'm just paying it forward. It was the first time in years that he had mentioned his humble past. In building his business persona, he had deliberately left this part of his history obscure. But there, before Patricia's sincerity, he felt that he could and should be equally honest. Patricia started working the next day. Lily came straight from school to the restaurant, where she did her homework in a small room improvised as an office. Her drawings began to decorate the walls, first of the room, then of the corridor, and eventually of the restaurant's dining room itself. Customers began to notice and comment about the little artist. Some asked to meet her, enchanted by the story that circulated among the staff, the girl who offered to wash dishes in exchange for food and ended up winning the heart of the restaurant owner. In 2 weeks, Lily's presence became part of the identity of Sunlight Flavors in New Orleans. Her table in the corner, always reserved for when she wanted to draw in the dining room, became a point of interest. Customers asked to be seated near her, enchanted by her concentration and talent. Teresa, who had initially opposed the girl's presence, was now one of her biggest advocates. She brings something special to this place, she commented to Andrew one afternoon. A humanity that perhaps we were losing. Andrew observed everything with a mixture of satisfaction and restlessness. He had helped Lily and Patricia, yes, but he felt there was something bigger to be done. Their story was not unique. How many other Lilies were out there, invisible to the eyes of passers-by? How many other mothers like Patricia fought daily for dignity and survival? It was on a rainy afternoon, watching Lily draw with concentration as the storm lashed New Orleans, that the idea took shape in his mind. It wouldn't be just an isolated act of charity. It would be a structured program, a change in the DNA of his business. That night, after the restaurant closed, Andrew stayed late in his office drafting what would become the most ambitious and personal project of his career, the Seeds Project. The Seeds Project started as a simple idea, to use part of the profits from Sunlight Flavors to feed children in vulnerable situations. But as Andrew delved into the concept, he realized it could be much more. He didn't just want to offer food, but real opportunities for transformation. Just as had happened with Lily and Patricia, for weeks he worked tirelessly on developing the project, often with Lily drawing silently by his side, while Patricia revolutionized the restaurant's cleaning team with her efficiency and dedication. "What are you doing?" asked Lily one afternoon, peering over Andrew's shoulder. "I'm creating a project to help other children like you," he replied, showing the sketches he had made. The girl's eyes sparkled with curiosity. "Other children will be able to eat here too. Not just eat. They'll be able to learn, develop talents, like you do with your drawings." Lily was silent for a moment, absorbing the idea. Then she took one of her pencils and offered it to Andrew. "You need colors. Beautiful projects have to have colors." Andrew accepted the pencil, touched by the simplicity of the observation. That was exactly what Lily had brought to his life. Color, where before there were only shades of corporate gray. The project quickly took shape. Andrew decided to start in New Orleans itself as a pilot, before expanding to other units in the chain. He rented a space near the restaurant and began renovations to transform it into a welcome center. There would be daily meals, educational activities, art workshops inspired by Lily's talent, and professional guidance for single mothers, with Patricia as the first coordinator. The news spread quickly among employees and customers of the restaurant. Many offered to help, impressed by the story of how it all began, a girl asking to wash dishes in exchange for food. It was Jason Reynolds, a digital influencer with millions of followers, who transformed the local story into a national phenomenon. Having lunch casually at Sunlight Flavors, he saw Lily drawing with concentration at her special table and asked one of the waiters about her. Enchanted by the story, he asked permission to film her and talk with her. Andrew initially hesitated, concerned about the exposure, but Patricia saw an opportunity there to give visibility to the project that was changing their lives. "My daughter is no longer invisible," she said, with tears in her eyes. "Maybe this is the chance to make so many other children visible." The video was published that same night and instantly went viral. The image of Lily drawing, her childish voice telling how she had asked to wash dishes, and then Andrew explaining the birth of the Seeds Project touched the hearts of thousands of Americans. Within 48 hours, the official profile of the Seeds Project, created in haste to respond to the sudden interest, already had more than 100,000 followers. Donations began to arrive from all over the country. Businessmen wanted to associate with the initiative. Celebrities offered support. And most importantly, other stories like Lily's began to be shared, creating a network of solidarity that surpassed all expectations. "I didn't expect it to grow so fast," confessed Andrew to Patricia, as they monitored together the renovation of the Welcome Center, now with a much larger budget than initially planned. "It's because people were waiting for this," she replied, watching the workers, "for something that would give them hope, that would show that genuine kindness still exists." Andrew reflected on those words. Genuine kindness. That's how people saw his actions, but he knew he had started almost selfishly, driven by the personal connection to his own difficult childhood. Only later, getting to know Lily and Patricia better, did he truly understand the deeper meaning of what he was doing. The Welcome Center would be inaugurated in a month, and preparations were advancing at full speed. Lily, now with a new school uniform that Andrew had enrolled her in, actively participated in decisions about the decoration of the space dedicated to children. Her confidence grew daily, as did her artistic talent, now nurtured by regular classes with an art teacher. Patricia also blossomed in her new role. From cleaning supervisor, she had been promoted to coordinator of the professional training program for mothers in vulnerable situations. Her life experience made her perfectly suited for the role, and her natural charisma earned the trust of the women who were beginning to enroll in the program. It was a Wednesday morning, with the sun finally appearing after days of rain, when the first serious obstacle arose in the path of the Seeds Project. Andrew was in his office reviewing the final details for the inauguration when Teresa entered hastily, her face tense. "Andrew, there's a man outside asking for Patricia. He seems aggressive." "Who is he?" "Says he's Lily's father." Andrew felt a chill down his spine. In all conversations with Patricia, Lily's father was mentioned only as someone who had abandoned the family even before the girl's birth. They had never heard from him again. "Where is Patricia?" "At the center with the new hires. Lily is at school." "Good, I'll talk to him." Teresa held his arm. "Be careful. He doesn't seem like a reasonable person." In the main hall, a thin man of approximately 35 years waited impatiently. He wore a wrinkled dress shirt and faded jeans. His restless eyes scanned the luxurious environment with a mixture of disdain and covetousness. "Can I help you?" asked Andrew, approaching cautiously. The man sized him up. "Are you Patricia's boss?" "I'm Andrew Lewis Morgan, owner of the restaurant, and you are—" "Roger Smith, Lily's father." He spoke with a rehearsed certainty, like someone repeating a title to which he has no right. "I heard my daughter and her mother are working here. I came to get them." Andrew maintained a neutral expression, although he felt the tension growing. "Patricia didn't mention she was in contact with you." Roger gave a crooked smile. "Of course not. She was always too proud. But things have changed now. I saw the video on the internet. My daughter became a celebrity, didn't she? Everyone talking about her and this project here." The mention of the video clarified everything. It wasn't for Patricia or Lily that he was there, but for the sudden visibility they had gained. "Mr. Smith, Patricia is not available at the moment. I suggest you contact her directly to schedule a meeting." "I don't need to schedule a meeting to see my own daughter." Roger's voice rose, attracting glances from the few customers present at that hour of the morning. "I have my rights as a father. If necessary, I can bring documents, go to court." "Any problem here?" The deep and calm voice came from a man who had just stood up from one of the nearby tables. It was Kyle Matthews, a well-known lawyer in the city and a regular customer of the restaurant. Andrew breathed a sigh of relief upon recognizing him. "Mr. Matthews, this is Roger Smith, who introduces himself as Lily's father. He's looking for Patricia." Kyle approached, extending his hand professionally. "Kyle Matthews, attorney. I couldn't help but overhear the conversation. You mentioned documents and court." Roger hesitated, clearly not expecting to find a lawyer there. "It's a family matter, nothing that needs interference. If you're mentioning legal rights, perhaps I can help clarify some issues," continued Kyle, with the tranquility of someone who knows well the terrain he treads. "For example, are you registered as the father on Lily's birth certificate?" Roger's silence was answer enough. "And I imagine you haven't financially contributed to her upbringing during these 7 years, correct? There are no records of child support or any type of support." Roger crossed his arms defensively. "Look, I didn't come here to be interrogated. I came to get my family. Without an established legal link and with a history of abandonment, your rights as a father are quite limited," explained Kyle with clinical calm. "Any attempt at disturbance could in fact constitute harassment, especially considering that your approach coincides conveniently with the recent positive media exposure of the child." Andrew observed the interaction, impressed. Kyle was dismantling Roger's pretensions with surgical precision, using the law as a shield. "Are you trying to prevent me from seeing my own daughter?" Roger's indignation sounded increasingly less convincing. "Not at all," replied Kyle, "just suggesting that you follow the appropriate channels. If you have a genuine interest in re-establishing contact, you can request judicial mediation, where the child's interests will be considered primarily, not yours." It was at that moment that Patricia entered the restaurant, freezing when she saw Roger. Her face instantly paled. Her hands began to tremble. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice almost inaudible. Roger opened a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Patricia, I was just talking about you. I came to get you both. Things have changed. I can take care of you now." Andrew and Kyle subtly positioned themselves beside Patricia, offering silent support. She seemed to gain strength from this presence. "You never cared about Lily. You never asked if we were alive or dead," she said, her voice gaining firmness with each word. "And now you show up, after seeing a video on the internet. People change, Patricia. I deserve a second chance. This isn't about what you deserve, it's about what's best for Lily." The determination on Patricia's face was new. Andrew realized he was no longer facing the insecure woman who had entered his office weeks ago asking for work. This Patricia had regained her strength, her dignity. "I'm not leaving here without talking to my daughter," insisted Roger, frustration making his voice harsher. "That won't be possible today," intervened Kyle. "As legal counsel, I strongly suggest that you don't insist unless you want your first reunion with your daughter to be mediated by police authorities." The mention of the police finally seemed to dissuade Roger. He cast a last angry look at Patricia. "This isn't over," he muttered, before turning his back and leaving. The silence that followed was heavy. Patricia was visibly trembling now, the adrenaline of the confrontation dissipating and leaving only fear. "He will come back," she said quietly. "I know, Roger, when he gets something in his head." "And we'll be prepared," assured Kyle. "If you'll allow me, I'd like to offer my services pro bono to ensure the legal safety of you and Lily." Andrew gently placed his hand on Patricia's shoulder. "You're not alone in this. We will protect you both." At that moment, while consoling Patricia and discussing the next measures with Kyle, Andrew realized that the Seeds project had become much more than a social responsibility program for his company. It had transformed into a family, a personal commitment that surpassed any professional motivation. And like any family, they now faced together the first great threat. Roger Smith represented not only a risk for Lily and Patricia, but a challenge to the very spirit of the project. The idea that it is possible to build something beautiful and lasting from the most adverse circumstances. "We'll increase security at the center and at the restaurant," decided Andrew. "And we need to think about how to tell this to Lily. She needs to be prepared in case he tries a direct approach." "But without scaring her," added Patricia, wiping away tears. "I don't want her to lose the joy she has finally found." Andrew nodded, aware of the delicate balance they needed to maintain. The Seeds project was about to bloom, but like any garden, it would need to be protected from the weeds that threatened to suffocate its growth. The inauguration of the first center of the Seeds project happened on a sunny Saturday morning. The building, previously an abandoned warehouse, had been completely transformed. The facade displayed a colorful mural inspired by Lily's drawings, depicting children holding hands, forming a circle around a tree whose roots spread, forming the word Seeds. The internal space was equally impressive. Spacious and well-lit rooms for educational activities, a modern and welcoming cafeteria, art studio, library, and a special area for professional training of single mothers. Every detail had been thought out to create an environment that combined functionality and warmth. The inauguration ceremony attracted important figures from New Orleans society, press, and dozens of families who were already enrolled to participate in the program. Under the flashes of cameras and the animated buzz of the crowd, Andrew seemed strangely uncomfortable, as if he wasn't used to being the center of attention for something that wasn't strictly related to business. "You need to speak," insisted Teresa, now executive director of the Seeds project, momentarily pulling him away from the circle of journalists. "Everyone is waiting. I don't know what to say," confessed Andrew, nervously adjusting his tie. "This isn't the type of speech I'm used to giving." "Then don't give a speech. Just tell the story." Andrew nodded, heading to the small stage set up in the central courtyard. Beside him, Patricia smiled proudly in her new role as coordinator, while Lily, wearing a yellow dress specially chosen for the occasion, held a bouquet of sunflowers almost her size. Silence gradually spread through the crowd when Andrew approached the microphone. He looked at the expectant faces, took a deep breath, and began to speak. "I didn't prepare a formal speech today," he said with simplicity, "because the Seeds project wasn't born from a corporate strategy or a marketing plan. It was born from an encounter, from a look." He then told the story of the day Lily appeared at Sunlight Flavors, offering to wash dishes in exchange for leftovers. He narrated how that encounter had awakened memories of his own difficult childhood, and how he realized that his trajectory of success in business would have no meaning if it wasn't used to create opportunities for others. "True success is not in what we achieve for ourselves, but in what we can build for others," he concluded, with a genuine emotion that surprised even those who had known him for years. "The Seeds project is just the beginning. Our goal is to open centers like this in every city where we have restaurants, creating a network of opportunities that transforms invisibility into protagonism." The applause was enthusiastic. Lily approached timidly to the microphone, gently pulling the sleeve of Andrew's jacket. "Can I speak too?" Andrew smiled, lowering the microphone to her height. Lily faced the crowd for a moment, her large eyes scanning the curious faces. "Before, I drew alone," she said, her voice small but clear. "Now many children will be able to draw with me, and no one will need to wash dishes to eat." The simplicity of those words provoked emotional laughter and new applause. Andrew realized that Lily, in her innocence, had perfectly summarized the essence of the project. The first days of operation of the center were of adjustments and learnings. Dozens of children began to frequent the space daily, receiving food, school support, and participating in artistic workshops. The professional training program for mothers already counted on 20 women enrolled, all in a situation similar to what Patricia had lived. The positive repercussions spread quickly. Businessmen from other regions began to make contact, interested in replicating the model. Politicians appeared offering partnerships. Even an international group of investors expressed interest in financing the expansion of the project to other countries in Latin America. Andrew, however, kept his feet on the ground. "We need to consolidate this first center before thinking about expansion," he said to everyone who suggested accelerated growth. "I don't want this to become just a corporate image project. The real impact on people's lives is what matters." It was this authenticity that attracted more and more supporters. The Seeds project wasn't just another social responsibility initiative. It was a movement born from a genuine human connection, and people felt that. In the midst of all this success, however, Roger's shadow still loomed over Patricia and Lily. Following Kyle Matthews' advice, who now officially acted as the project's lawyer, they had obtained protective measures preventing him from approaching the two. Discreet security guards were hired for the center and the restaurant, and Lily was never alone, even during the journey to school. "He hasn't appeared again," commented Patricia to Andrew. about a month after the incident. Maybe he gave up. "Let's maintain the precautions for now," he replied, cautious. Kyle is investigating his past. It seems that Roger has a history of appearing when he feels he can gain some advantage. Patricia sighed, looking out the office window to the courtyard, where Lily played with other children. She's so happy now. "Sometimes I wonder if I did the right thing by allowing all this exposure." "You gave her a voice, Patricia, and through her, many other children are being heard." It was true. The Lily effect, as some journalists had begun to call it, inspired people all over the country. Similar stories began to emerge. Children in vulnerable situations being noticed, welcomed, valued. The number of similar initiatives grew every week, creating a true network of solidarity. Andrew observed this movement with a mixture of pride and awe. He had never imagined that a casual encounter with a girl asking for leftover food would result in something so significant. It was as if Lily had planted a seed not only in the project that carried that name, but in his own heart. On a particularly busy afternoon, when the center was buzzing with activities and Andrew was conducting a meeting with potential partners, Teresa entered the room hurriedly. "Andrew, sorry to interrupt, but there's a lady at the reception insisting on speaking with you. Says it's urgent." "Who is she?" "Mrs. Zelda. Says she's Patricia's friend, the one who sheltered them when they were evicted." Andrew excused himself to those present and followed Teresa to the reception, where a black lady of approximately 60 years was waiting, her face marked by concern. "Mrs. Zelda? I'm Andrew Morgan. How can I help you?" "Mr. Andrew," she anxiously wrung her hands. "Sorry to come without warning, but I needed to alert Patricia. Roger appeared in the neighborhood asking questions about her and Lily. He's different, well-dressed, accompanied by a man in a suit. I didn't like their manner." The alarm immediately sounded in Andrew's mind. When was this? This morning. He showed documents, said he was Lily's father and had rights. The man with him seemed to be a lawyer or something. Andrew thanked her for the information and asked Teresa to accompany Mrs. Zelda to Patricia's room, while he himself called Kyle Matthews. The news was worrying. Roger hadn't given up, just changed his strategy, now apparently with legal guidance. "I'll check if there has been any formal request in court," assured Kyle over the phone. "Meanwhile, reinforce security. He may be trying to create a case of parental alienation." That night, after the center closed, Andrew, Patricia, Kyle, and Teresa met to discuss the situation. Lily had been taken home earlier by one of the security guards without knowing the reason for the adult's concern. "He doesn't have a case," affirmed Kyle, consulting his notes. "He's not listed as the father on the birth certificate, never contributed financially, and there are witnesses to the abandonment. But that doesn't mean he can't cause trouble." "What if he really wants to approach Lily?" asked Patricia, her voice trembling. "What if he manages to convince her? She's never had a father. She might be curious, vulnerable to manipulation." Andrew perceived the legitimate fear in Patricia's eyes. It wasn't just the fear of losing custody of her daughter, but the fear that Lily could be emotionally hurt by a man who only became interested in her, now that she had become visible to society. "Maybe it's time to tell Lily the truth," gently suggested Teresa. "In a way appropriate to her age, of course. But children notice when adults are hiding something." Patricia nodded slowly. "You're right, I need to prepare Lily. She's intelligent, she'll understand." "We'll be with you," assured Andrew, placing his hand over hers in a gesture of support. It was at that moment, while planning how to protect Lily from Roger, that Andrew felt something change within him. The Seeds Project had begun as a form of giving back, inspired by his own childhood memories, but now it was personal in a way he had never imagined. It wasn't just about helping a child and her mother. It was about defending a family that, in some inexplicable way, had become his too. The next morning, Patricia talked with Lily. Andrew wasn't present, respecting the privacy of that moment between mother and daughter, but when he saw them entering the center together later, holding hands and with serene expressions, he knew the conversation had gone well. Lily came straight to him, her eyes large and serious. "Mom told me about the man who says he's my father." Andrew crouched to be at her height. "And how are you feeling about that?" "A little confused," she admitted. "But Mom said that family is who takes care of us, not just who has the same blood." "Your mom is very wise." Lily smiled then, that smile that illuminated her entire face. "She also said that now we have a bigger family, you, Teresa, The aunties from the kitchen, Mr. Matthews, all the children from the project. She paused, thoughtful. It's like in my drawings, people holding hands, taking care of each other. Andrew felt a lump in his throat. How could a 7-year-old girl have such clarity about what really mattered? It was as if Lily saw beyond adult complications, straight to the heart of issues. You know what I think? She continued, with the peculiar seriousness she sometimes assumed. I think this man is sad because he doesn't know what it's like to have a family like this. The observation, in its childish simplicity, contained a deep truth that struck Andrew. Perhaps Roger was, in his way, as invisible as Lily had once been. Not that it justified his actions, but it offered a different perspective on the conflict. As Lily moved away to join the other children in the art workshop, Andrew remained standing, reflecting on how a girl who had asked for leftover food in exchange for washing dishes was now teaching all of them lessons about the true meaning of family, belonging, and compassion. The Seeds project continued to grow, flourishing amid the city's asphalt, transforming lives with the same simplicity with which Lily transformed blank paper into colourful works of art. And Andrew knew with a certainty that came from the depths of his soul that this was just the first flowering of many to come. If you found this story interesting, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give it a like. Tell us which city you're watching from. We'll continue. 3 months passed since the inauguration of the Seeds project. What had begun as a local initiative in New Orleans had transformed into a national movement. Lily's story continued to inspire people throughout America, and the project model was being replicated in other cities, always maintaining the fundamental principles: dignified welcome, talent development, and real opportunities for transformation. Andrew had drastically reduced his business trips, temporarily transferring the administrative headquarters of Sunlight Flavors to New Orleans. The board of directors questioned this decision, concerned about the impact on business. But he remained unyielding. The Seeds project is not just a social arm of the company, he explained in a tense video conference meeting. It's a redefinition of our purpose as an organization. Our restaurants don't exist just to serve sophisticated dishes to those who can pay, but to nourish entire communities. This vision was not unanimously accepted. Mark Winters, the group's financial director, frequently expressed his concern about what he called a deviation of focus. I'm not questioning the nobility of the initiative, Andrew, he argued during one of the meetings. But you're channeling significant resources into a project that doesn't generate direct financial return. The shareholders are restless. Then perhaps we need different shareholders, replied Andrew with a firmness that surprised everyone. The value of a company is not measured only by its profits, but by the positive impact it generates. It was a new phase in the life of Andrew Lewis Morgan. The calculating and pragmatic executive was giving way to a leader driven by purpose. And this transformation didn't go unnoticed by those who had known him longer. I never imagined seeing you like this, commented Teresa one afternoon, as they observed together the painting class at the center. Lily, now an official monitor of the class for younger children, patiently guided a boy who was struggling to mix colors correctly. You seem happy, Andrew smiled, a genuine smile that would have been rare on his face a few months ago. It's strange, isn't it? I spent so much time pursuing success that I never stopped to think about what would really make me happy. The center buzzed with activity. In the improvised classrooms, volunteers helped children with school difficulties. In the industrial kitchen, a retired chef taught basic notions of gastronomy to interested teenagers. In the professional training space, Patricia coordinated an entrepreneurship course for single mothers, now confident and articulate, unrecognizable compared to the insecure woman of a few months ago. It was a scene that filled Andrew with pride. But the horizon wasn't completely free of clouds. Kyle Matthews had discovered that Roger was, in fact, preparing a lawsuit for recognition of paternity and request for shared custody of Lily. The lawyer accompanying him, known for acting in controversial cases, had a reputation for using aggressive tactics in the media. They're going to try to turn this into a public spectacle, warned Kyle during a private meeting with Andrew and Patricia. They'll claim that you're preventing a reconnection between father and daughter, and that you're only interested in the positive image that Lily brings to the project. That's absurd, exclaimed Patricia, indignant. Roger never cared about Lily. He didn't even come to the hospital when she was born. We know that, agreed Kyle gently, but they'll use the narrative of a repentant father who wants a second chance. It's a story that moves many people. Andrew remained silent, absorbing the information with a calculated calm. Finally, he asked, "What can we do?" "Legally, our case is solid," assured Kyle, "but we need to prepare for the battle of public opinion. If Roger gains public sympathy, it could affect the Seeds project as a whole." The concern was legitimate. The project had grown supported by the emotion generated by Lily's story. If this narrative was distorted, there could be a significant impact on public support and built partnerships. "I won't allow them to use my daughter as a pawn in this game," declared Patricia, the determination evident in her voice. "Lily is finally happy, safe, developing her talent. No one is going to take that away from her." Andrew admired the strength of that woman. In a few months, Patricia had blossomed in an impressive way, discovering leadership and communication skills that had probably always been there, just waiting for the right opportunity to emerge. Roger's threat, however, was just one of the challenges they faced. Internally, the Seeds project was growing faster than the structure could accommodate. There were waiting lists for all activities, and many needy families had to be turned away due to lack of space and resources. "We need to expand," concluded Andrew after a meeting with the team. "This space is no longer sufficient." The solution came from an unexpected source. Mrs. Irene Albright, one of the oldest and most demanding customers of Sunlight Flavors, and who had initially criticized Lily's presence in the restaurant, appeared one day at the center asking to speak with Andrew. "I've been observing the work you're doing here," said the elegant lady of more than 70 years. "I confess that at first I thought it was just a marketing ploy, but I see now that it's genuine." She then revealed that she owned a large property in the Riverdale neighborhood, with an old mansion that had belonged to her family for generations. "I'm donating the property to the Seeds project. It has enough space to triple the attendance, and the garden would be perfect for the children." Andrew was momentarily speechless, surprised by the unexpected generosity. "Why are you doing this, Mrs. Albright?" The lady smiled, a smile that softened the severe lines of her face. "Because Lily reminded me of someone, of myself, many decades ago. I too was an invisible girl once, until someone saw me." Mrs. Albright's donation was a turning point for the project. The historic mansion, after the necessary renovations, would make it possible not only to increase the number of children served, but also to implement new programs, such as a basic medical clinic and an incubator for small businesses for mothers in the training process. The news of the expansion was received with enthusiasm by the team and the families served. But it also intensified scrutiny over the project and, consequently, over Andrew and Patricia. It was in this context that the storm finally arrived. One morning, upon opening the project's social media, Teresa was faced with dozens of negative comments. A newly created profile had published a text accusing Andrew of using Lily and other vulnerable children to clean the image of his restaurant chain, which supposedly had a history of questionable labor practices. "It's clearly an orchestrated campaign," concluded Kyle after analyzing the material. "The same points are being repeated on different platforms, using very similar language. Someone is behind this." The obvious suspicion fell on Roger and his lawyer, but there was no concrete evidence. The damage, however, was already being done. Some partners began to question their association with the project, concerned about possible controversies. Journalists called asking for clarifications about the accusations. "We can't let this destabilize us," said Andrew during an emergency meeting with the main team. "The work we do is real. The lives we're transforming are real. We'll respond with transparency and move forward." But the emotional impact was undeniable, especially for Patricia. She blamed herself for having allowed Lily to become a public figure, indirectly exposing her to this type of situation. "What if this affects her?" she asked anxiously, after discovering that some children at school had made comments about the news their parents discussed at home. "She's just a child. She doesn't deserve to go through this." Patricia's concern materialized in an unexpected way. One afternoon, Lily returned from school unusually quiet. When asked about what had happened, she reported that a classmate had said her father was an opportunist, who only wanted to be with her because of the fame, and that Uncle Andrew was using her to look good in the picture. "I didn't really understand," confessed Lily, her eyes watery. "But he said it in a way that seemed like a bad thing." Patricia and Andrew exchanged worried looks. The situation had reached the point they most feared. It was directly affecting Lily. "I think we need to talk," said Andrew, sitting next to the girl. "Sometimes people say things without understanding what's really happening." With simple and honest words, he explained to Lily that some people were saying things that weren't true about the project and about her family. He explained the concept of jealousy and how sometimes the good we do bothers those who can't or don't want to do the same. "It's like when someone doesn't know how to draw as well as you, and instead of asking for help to improve, prefers to say your drawing isn't beautiful," he exemplified. Lily nodded, understanding the analogy. "But why would my father do this? He doesn't even know me." The question caught Andrew by surprise. How did she know that Roger was behind the accusations? Or was it just childish intuition? "What makes you think it's your father who's saying these things?" Lily lowered her eyes. "He found me at school yesterday. Said you and Mom are preventing him from seeing me because you're afraid I'll prefer to live with him." Patricia paled. "He went to your school? Talked to you?" Lily nodded. "During recess. He was on the other side of the fence. Said he'll soon come to get me to live in a big house with a swimming pool." The revelation fell like a bomb. Roger had violated the protective measure by approaching Lily directly. Even more seriously, he was trying to manipulate her with promises. "Why didn't you tell us this before, sweetheart?" asked Patricia, trying to control the tremor in her voice. "Because I didn't want you to be sad." Lily looked from Patricia to Andrew, her large eyes full of a concern that no 7-year-old child should carry. "He said you'll fight a lot when you find out he talked to me." Andrew felt an anger he hadn't experienced in a long time. It wasn't the calculated irritation of the thwarted executive, but a protective, visceral fury. Roger was deliberately trying to create a conflict, using Lily as an instrument. "Nobody is going to fight," he assured her, gently holding the girl's hands. "But we need to protect you. What your father did wasn't right." "He's not my father," replied Lily with surprising conviction. "A father is someone who cares, who is there, like you are with us." The silence that followed was loaded with emotion. Andrew felt something break and recompose inside him. He had entered this journey thinking he was just helping a vulnerable child, giving back to the universe what he had once received. But now he realized he had received much more than he had given. Lily and Patricia had filled a void in his life that he didn't even know existed. They had brought purpose, connection, family, and now they were all facing together a storm that threatened to uproot the still fragile roots of what they had planted. "We won't let this separate us," promised Andrew, hugging Lily and extending his arm to include Patricia. "Some plants grow stronger after the storm." That night, after Lily fell asleep, Andrew and Patricia talked at length with Kyle about the next steps. Roger's violation of the protective measure gave them a significant legal advantage, but the emotional damage had already been done. Lily had been directly exposed to the conflict. "We need to think of her well-being above all," insisted Patricia. "Maybe we should distance ourselves a bit from public exposure, at least until this situation is resolved." Andrew agreed, although he knew this could negatively impact the project just when they were about to expand. "The Seeds project will continue, even if Lily and you need to be more reserved for a while. The important thing is to protect you both." It was then that Patricia made a suggestion that surprised him. "What if we didn't hide? What if we faced this head-on, with our own narrative?" "What do you mean?" "Roger is trying to control the story, transform it into something dirty, self-interested, but the truth is much more powerful. What if we told our complete story, exactly as it happened, without filters, without glamorization? The reality of a single mother who fought to raise her daughter, of a businessman who rediscovered his purpose, of a child who just wanted to be seen." The idea was risky, but also powerful. Instead of defending themselves from the accusations, they could completely change the focus of the discussion, bringing it back to what really mattered, the lives that were being transformed. "It's courageous," observed Kyle. "But it might work. People recognize authenticity when they see it." Andrew looked at Patricia with renewed admiration. The woman before him, confident and strategic, was a living testimony of what the Seeds project represented, the human capacity to flourish when given the right conditions. "Let's do it," he decided. Together, as the storm raged outside, trying to uproot what they had planted with such care, They prepared to show the world the strength of the roots they had created. Roots that were not limited to a physical space or a social project, but that intertwined in their hearts, forming something that no storm could destroy. A true family. Patricia's idea quickly took shape. Instead of a formal interview or a press release, they opted for something more genuine. A simple documentary filmed at the center itself, showing the day-to-day of the Seeds project. Not just Lily and her story would be the focus, but all the lives that were being transformed there. They invited Rachel Vincent, an independent documentary filmmaker known for her sensitive work with social themes, to direct the project. She accepted immediately, touched by the proposal. "I don't want to create something romantic or idealized," explained Rachel during the first planning meeting. "I want to show the reality, with all the challenges and obstacles. The beauty lies precisely in the truth." For 2 weeks, discreet cameras recorded the daily life of the Seeds project. They showed the logistical difficulties, the families they still couldn't serve, the moments of doubt and frustration. But they also captured the joy of children discovering talents, mothers regaining self-esteem, volunteers finding purpose. Andrew, Patricia, and Lily gave frank interviews, speaking openly about their lives before they met, and how that casual encounter had transformed everything. Long-time employees of Sunlight Flavors reported how Andrew had changed, becoming more human, more present. Even Mrs. Albright participated, explaining why she had decided to donate her mansion to the project. "I'm donating more than a property," she said, emotion momentarily breaking her usual aristocratic composure. "I'm donating a legacy. I want that house, which saw so many generations of my family grow in privilege, to now see other children grow in opportunity." When the documentary was almost finished, something unexpected happened. Roger contacted them through his lawyer, requesting a meeting. Andrew and Patricia consulted Kyle, who recommended caution but didn't oppose. "Let's hear what he has to say," decided Patricia, surprising everyone with her serenity. "Maybe it's time to resolve this in a civilized manner." The meeting was scheduled for a Friday afternoon at Kyle's office. Besides the lawyers, only Andrew, Patricia, and Roger would be present. Lily would remain at the center, under Teresa's care, completely unaware of the meeting. Roger arrived punctually, wearing a suit that seemed new but already showed signs of careless use. There was evident tension on his face, as if he were uncomfortable in that formal environment. "Thank you for agreeing to meet me," he began, sitting rigidly in the indicated chair. "Why did you request this meeting, Roger?" asked Patricia directly, without hostility, but also without the slightest indication of intimacy. He took a deep breath, like someone preparing for a rehearsed speech. "I came to propose an agreement. I withdraw the request for shared custody and all related actions in exchange for financial compensation." The proposal, although not surprising, fell like a stone in the environment. Andrew felt a mixture of relief and indignation. Relief because finally Roger was showing his true intentions. Indignation because this man was literally trying to sell his rights over a child he had never cared for. "Financial compensation?" repeated Kyle, maintaining a professional tone. "Could you elaborate?" "Your project is growing. It's going to become a franchise, expand to other states. My daughter's story is at the center of it all. I deserve a part." Patricia closed her eyes for a moment, as if she needed to gather strength not to explode. When she opened them again, there was a renewed clarity in her gaze. "Your daughter? You never changed a diaper of hers, never cared for a fever, never worried if she had something to eat or wear. You don't know what her favorite color is, what flavor of ice cream she prefers, what the name of her best friend at school is. What kind of father is that?" Roger looked away, visibly uncomfortable. "Circumstances were complicated. I wasn't ready to be a father." "And now you are?" questioned Andrew, unable to contain himself. "Or are you just ready to try to profit from a child who suddenly became valuable in your eyes?" Roger's lawyer intervened, trying to direct the conversation to a more negotiable tone. "My client is willing to renounce all legal rights he could claim in exchange for a value we consider fair given the circumstances." "There are no circumstances or values to be discussed," replied Kyle firmly. "Your client has no established legal rights, abandoned the child even before birth, and recently violated a protective measure by approaching her at school. We are here only out of courtesy and to avoid prolonging a process that would only harm Lily." A heavy silence fell over the room. Roger seemed increasingly uncomfortable, his plan clearly crumbling before the firmness of those present. It was Patricia who finally broke the silence with a surprising proposal. "We have a documentary almost ready about the Seeds project," she said, looking directly at Roger. "If you really care about Lily, perhaps you'd like to participate. Tell your version of the story, why you abandoned a pregnancy, why you reappeared now. Be honest, for the first time." The suggestion caught everyone by surprise. Even Kyle looked at Patricia with astonishment. "It would be image suicide," protested Roger's lawyer. "No one will sympathize with a father who abandoned his daughter and now tries to commercialize her," completed Andrew. "Probably not, but it would be the truth. And the Seeds project is about truth, about making visible what society prefers to ignore." Roger seemed genuinely disturbed now. "You want to humiliate me publicly?" "No," replied Patricia, with surprising gentleness. "We want to give you the chance to do the right thing, at least once. To be honest, to show Lily that even people who make mistakes can choose a better path." The offer hung in the air like an unlikely but real possibility. It wasn't revenge that Patricia offered, but redemption, a chance for Roger to transform his narrative from opportunistic villain into something more complex, more human. "I need to think," he finally said, standing up. "I'll consider the proposal." When he and his lawyer left, Andrew looked at Patricia with renewed admiration. "You would really give him that chance?" "It's not for him," she replied simply. "It's for Lily. One day she'll grow up and ask questions. I want her to know that we never hid the truth from her, not even the difficult parts." 3 days later, to everyone's surprise, Roger agreed to participate in the documentary. His interview, conducted by Rachel, was surprisingly honest. He spoke about his immaturity, his fear of responsibilities, how he had convinced himself that Patricia and Lily would be better off without him. He admitted that he only became interested in them again after the story went viral, attracted by the possibility of some financial benefit. "I'm not a monster," he said, visibly emotional before the cameras. "I'm just a man who made mistakes and kept making more mistakes trying to fix the first ones." At the end of the interview, he did something that no one expected. He publicly apologized to Patricia and Lily, formally renounced any legal claim over the girl, and announced that he would undergo therapy to work on his issues. "Maybe one day, if Lily wants, we can build some kind of relationship," he concluded. "But that will be her decision when she's old enough to choose." The documentary Seeds: Stories That Flourish on Asphalt was released 2 weeks later on a streaming platform. The impact was immediate and overwhelming. The raw and honest story touched millions of people. The transparency with which the Seeds project exhibited not only its successes, but also its challenges and difficulties, won the public's trust in a way that no advertising campaign could. The accusations against Andrew and the project quickly lost strength. Instead, a wave of support formed. Companies that had backed away returned to offer partnerships. Volunteers appeared in record numbers. Donations allowed the expansion to Mrs. Albright's mansion to happen in record time. More importantly, other similar initiatives began to appear across the country. The Seeds project model inspired organizations in different cities to create their own welcome and development centers. 6 months after the release of the documentary, Sunlight Flavors in New Orleans was packed for a special occasion, the inauguration of the first official art exhibition of the Seeds project. The walls of the restaurant, normally decorated with works by renowned artists, now displayed drawings and paintings created by the children of the project. At the center of the exhibition, occupying the place of honor, was a large canvas painted by Lily. It was a colorful and stylized portrait of diverse people forming a circle, holding hands. In the center of the circle, a leafy tree extended its branches as if embracing everyone. At the top of the canvas, in large and colorful letters, it read, "Everyone deserves to be seen." The exhibition was an instant success. Customers and special guests circulated admiringly among the works, many of them moved by the expressive force that emanated from these children's works. Several drawings were sold at surprising prices, with all the value reverting to the Seeds project. Andrew observed everything with a sense of accomplishment he had never experienced in all his years of business success. In a corner of the room, Patricia coordinated a group of child artists who proudly explained their works to visitors. Lily, now 8 years old, moved with surprising poise among the guests, answering questions about her painting with the adorable seriousness that characterized her. "Impressive what you've built here," commented Mark Winters, the financial director who had so questioned the project at the beginning. He had traveled especially from Chicago for the event. "I have to admit I was wrong. This isn't just social responsibility. It's a complete redefinition of the company's purpose." Andrew smiled. "I didn't build this alone. In fact, I don't even know if I can say I built it. I think I just allowed it to happen." And the shareholders who were concerned, now they're the biggest advocates of the project. Who would have thought that doing good could be an excellent business too? It was true. Since the release of the documentary, Sunlight Flavors had experienced unprecedented growth. People lined up to dine at restaurants associated with the Seeds project. The brand, previously known only for its sophisticated gastronomy, now carried an emotional and social value that no marketing campaign could create. The night was advancing, and the exhibition remained packed when Andrew felt a tug on his sleeve. It was Lily, her eyes shining with excitement. "Come see something," she asked, pulling him by the hand. Andrew let himself be guided to a quieter corner of the room, where a small table had been set up. On it, a colorful hardcover book displayed the title, "The Notebook of the Invisibles." "I made a book with my drawings," Lily explained proudly. "Teresa helped me publish it. It's to sell and give the money to the project." Andrew leafed through the book, moved. It was a compilation of the drawings that Lily had made throughout those months, portraying children and families in vulnerable situations, but always with an element of hope and transformation. On the last page, the drawing she had made for him at the beginning of it all. The girl, the restaurant, and the man in an apron smiling. "It's amazing, Lily," he said, his voice choked. "You are amazing." She smiled, that luminous smile that had changed his life. "You know what the art teacher said? That every true artist has a theme that is only theirs. My theme is making invisible people become visible." Andrew crouched to be at eye level with her. "And you've done that better than anyone I've ever known." At that moment, observing Lily's bright eyes, Andrew fully understood the magnitude of what they had built together. The Seeds project wasn't just about offering food, education, or opportunities. It was about seeing people in their totality, in their complexity, in their unexplored potential. It was about recognizing the humanity in each one, especially in those whom society preferred to keep invisible. Later that night, when most of the guests had already left, Andrew, Patricia, and Lily sat at the corner table, that same one where it all began. Teresa joined them, bringing a small box. "A gift from the kitchen staff," she explained, placing the box on the table. Inside was a simple cake, decorated with the stylized image of the Seeds project logo. A solitary candle glowed in the center. "To celebrate 1 year since the day Lily first entered the restaurant," said Teresa with a smile. Lily looked at the cake, then at Andrew and Patricia. "Can I make a wish before blowing it out?" "Of course," replied Patricia, affectionately running her hand through her daughter's hair. The girl closed her eyes tightly, concentrating intensely as only children can do when they take the magic of a wish seriously. Then she blew out the candle with determination. "What did you wish for?" asked Andrew, curious. Lily smiled, with that peculiar wisdom that sometimes appeared in her childlike eyes. "I can't tell or it won't come true. But it's about our garden." "Garden?" "Yes. The Seeds project. A garden is when many different plants grow together, helping each other. That's what we did, isn't it? We planted a garden where people can grow." Andrew felt his eyes water. Patricia squeezed his hand under the table, equally moved. "Yes, Lily," he agreed. "We planted a garden, and most importantly, we made it visible to everyone." As they savored the cake together, like the unlikely but solid family they had become, Andrew reflected on the extraordinary journey that had begun with a simple request. "Can I eat the leftovers? I'll wash the dishes." That phrase, spoken with dignity by a 7-year-old girl, had triggered a transformation that went far beyond a social project or a company. It had changed hearts, redefined purposes, built bridges where before there were only abysses of indifference. And perhaps that was the true miracle of the seeds they had planted, the ability to transform not only the soil where they fell, but the entire ecosystem around, to create a garden where before there was only asphalt, a garden visible to the eyes of all, flowery, diverse, and deeply human. Outside, New Orleans continued its nightlife. Cars honked, people walked hurriedly. The sea breeze brought the characteristic smell of Louisiana. But inside that restaurant, in the corner that had become the heart of a silent revolution, time seemed suspended in a perfect moment of achievement and promise, a moment in which a formerly invisible child, a formerly disbelieved single mother, and a formerly disconnected businessman celebrated not only what they had built, but what they had become. A family, a community, a visible garden flourishing in the midst of the asphalt of indifference. And as Lily laughed at something Teresa had said, her eyes shining with the pure joy of childhood finally recovered, Andrew knew, with absolute certainty, that he would never be the same again, that he would never again allow someone to remain invisible before his eyes, that true wealth was not in bank accounts or business success, but in the ability to see, really see, who is before us, to transform, with this simple act of recognition, entire lives.